The voice of the hijacker heard from the hijacked plane's voice recorder reveals that the accent of the hijacker matches an Israeli Hebrew accent.
Stay quiet and you'll be okay. We're heading to the airport.
The next transmission comes seconds later.
Nobody move. Everything was okay. If you try to make any move, the danger yourself and the airplane. Let's stay quiet.
FBI Director Mueller, BBC News, and ABC have confirmed that 7 of the 19 Muslims whose mugshots were flashed around the world did not die in the 911 crashes. They are alive and well and are victims of identity theft. An 8th accused Muslim died 1 year before the 911 hijackings even occurred. Who stole their identities, and why isn't the FBI looking for them? If the hijackers really were Muslims, why would they steal the identities of fellow Muslims and implicate them? Wouldn't they be more likely to steal Israeli identities and put the blame on Israelis? If the hijackers were Israelis, wouldn't they be likely to steal the identities of Muslims and put the blame on Muslims?
أيها المجاهدون، إن الدين لا يقوم إلا على أولي العزمات من الرجال، ولا يقوم أبدا على أكتاف المترقصين والمترفين، وحاشاه أن يقوم على أكتافهم. فالدين العظيم لا يقوم إلا على أكتاف العظماء من الرجال، والمسؤولية الجسيمة التي ناءت بحملها السماوات والأرض لا يمكن أن يقوم بها إلا أهلها ورجالها. إن كنت تنوح يا حمام البال من بيني، فأين شاهد الأحزان؟ أجفانك للدموع أم أجفاني؟ لا يقبل مدعي بلا برهان.
تغطيهم دماء ويبتسمون في فرح شديد، إذا قتلوا فقد نالوا الأماني، وإن قتلوا فويل للجحود. عجبت لهم تغطيهم دماء ويبتسمون في فرح شديد، إذا قتلوا فقد نالوا الأماني، وإن قتلوا فويل للجحود. عجبت لهم تغطيهم دماء ويبتسمون في فرح شديد، إذا قتلوا فقد نالوا الأماني، وإن قتلوا فويل للجحود. وأعجب من تشوقهم لعدن تشوقهم إلى الله المجيد، إذا لاقوه قالوا في رجاء أعدنا كي نقاتل من جديد.
But this was the first attempt by Israel to get the United States to hold a line, to create a buffer state, to basically to secure their perimeter for them. And it was a disaster. Ronald Reagan pulled the troops out, and that was the end of that. But they then went forward with their plan to do this on a grand scale. And 9/11 was that operation. 9/11 was meant to deceive the American people into thinking that the United States is under attack by Arabs and Muslims, and it was therefore in our best interest to wage war against them. And they passed a bill in Congress called the Authorization to Use Force, and that is the legislation that the president has been using ever since to wage war in countries from Libya to Iraq to Somalia. You know, America right now is currently engaged in a half a dozen conflicts in the Middle East. And we've already destroyed 5 nations, I think it is. Basically left 5 nations on the side of the road. Obama signed legislation, or legislation was passed, which will provide Israel with $38 billion over the next 10 years, which is basically a 30% increase in their funding over a 10-year period. It's a massive amount of money. Why do we give all this money to Israel? Well, it's very easy to see. It's that in the United States, the Zionist enterprise, the Zionist organizations, They work as a collective. They work hand in hand, and they're very organized. And they have a lot of political influence. So they're instrumental in choosing the candidates who run for office. They're very instrumental in seeing which candidates get elected. And if a candidate for congressional office or the presidency turns against Israel in any way, or votes against Israeli legislation in any way, they'll find in the next election that Zionist money is used against them, and they're out of office. The United States has now been engaged in wars on behalf of Israel in Syria, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Libya, in Somalia, in Yemen,